concentration?
Yeah, fifth year, worn and weathered. So I'm Zoe, as Alyssa mentioned, also in 5A, math and business. I haven't majored on the Waterloo side, but I'm mostly taking combinatorics and optimization courses. That's because as part of double degree, you don't have to have a major if you don't want to. And then on the business side, I'm probably doing sustainable business, or business sustainability or whatever it's called. But that's unless something else, other courses seem more interesting, because you also don't need to major on the Laurier side.
We love double degree for that. And I guess just a reminder, the meeting will be recorded. Um, so you can check that out later as well. And yeah, if you have questions for now, we have some prepared that we'll go into. But if you guys have any, there's a Q&A box that you can just send them into. There's a chat and a Q&A. Please make sure you submit them to the Q&A. And we would love to answer them as much as best as we can. So I guess maybe, oh, there's one coming in.
Yeah, I can read it. I got an email today about textbook fees from Laurier. If I am a student on the Waterloo side, has that fee already been added to my tuition, or do I have to pay the fee separately to Laurier? So you will have to pay that fee separately to Laurier. You can do that through Loris, which is the Laurier version of Quest, and you set them up as a payable the same way you would do when you're paying Waterloo. But you do have to pay them separately for textbooks.
I think that's the only separate expense, to my knowledge.
Unless you decide that you want to join the Laurier gym.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I don't go to the gym.
Yeah, if you want to do like the shoe tag program to have access to like the classes and stuff like that, you would pay separately to the Waterloo gym or the Laurier gym. And I think aside from that, you would pay everything to Waterloo if you're a Waterloo-based student.
Okay, cool. Oh, hello. Teaching math dance was awesome. I am so glad you tuned in. I hope you submit a video. I will plug that event right now. First 40 submissions, get a $25 gift card to the W store. So get at it. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
that's where I got this sweater, and it is so comfy.
That's where I got this shirt. We have lots of Waterloo merch. Um, yeah, thanks for the shout out. Um, okay, let's do. Um, did we do any summer courses to get ahead on the required courses? How does that work? Um, so I've only ever done one course during a work term, so I guess maybe I'll kind of reword the question a bit. Because at Waterloo, you never really get like a summer off as you might at like a regular or a different school, because you're always either on a work term or you're on a study term. So maybe instead of answering like, do we ever take courses in the summer to get ahead, it would be more like, do we ever take courses over co-op, or maybe do we even take like 6 courses instead of the normal full course load of 5? So I can speak to my experience with it, Zoe can speak to yours. I've only ever taken a course over co-op one time, and that was during my first co-op term. I took econ, I took macroeconomics, just to get that one out of the way. It wasn't bad. The course was fairly easy to do online. My experience after that, I haven't really taken anything during co-op just because I like enjoying my co-op term without having to kind of do work after work. It's very nice to kind of get a bit of a break. So I don't really do courses during co-op. And in terms of doing 6 courses instead of 5, I did that once in 1B, which I think all of you will have to do as well. And I did it once just this past summer term. It is more work, so that's why I haven't done it before, but I did it now just because the way courses lined up for me, I kind of needed to. Um, whatever requirements were changing and I wouldn't have been able to take it later, so I kind of had to take it now. But that's been my experience.
Yeah, so I can also speak to this question. Aside from the econ course that Alyssa took that I also took, it's very common for double degree students to take that course during the first co-op. I've taken one other course during co-op, and I've taken 6 courses once, and I'm taking another course over co-op, and that has purely been so I can do fun electives that I wouldn't have time to do. So I wouldn't say I'm doing it to get ahead because when you're working full day in co-op, you end the day, you're very tired. You don't want to go do homework or watch lectures. So I took like courses I thought would be fun, so I wouldn't like mind doing them as much. And it was purely because I wouldn't be able to fit them in my schedule otherwise. So I was taking like fun like English courses, nothing to do with our degree. So you can do it to get ahead, but I prefer taking courses alongside with my friends. So I always have a buddy in my class with me. So I haven't ever felt like the urgency to get ahead, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely enough time, like in the terms that we have to complete everything on time. Um,
But yeah, in terms of how does that work? If you want to take 6 courses, you can do that like twice, kind of like for free. And then if you want to do it again, you need to have an average of, I think, above 80. And then if you want to take a course over co-op, you can take one unless you have special permissions from your employer, in which case I think you can do two, but they cap you at that, I think.
okay, so we have another question. How did you find the transition from Ontario high school math to math 135, 137, or 145, 147? If the A formation is not applicable, how was the transition to the first year Waterloo math courses? Thank you. So you start.
Okay. So for Math 135, they're purposely like you're sorry, I'm going to restart. For Math 135, it's a course that's teaching you how to read and write proofs. But in order to practice writing proofs, they teach you content, and they purposely try and go for content that you haven't encountered in high school. It's not complicated. It's like pretty simple number theory, and I personally found it like very fun. If you like algebra, I think you'll probably find it fun. But it isn't like really complicated concepts because the reason you're learning it is so you can practice writing proofs on it. In terms of 137, it actually has a lot of overlap with high school content. There's stuff for limits and like derivatives and like basic calculus things. The one thing that's most different about it is that when like you're answering questions, I would say the way that you have to like engage and think about the content is kind of different because when you're looking at it from the point of view of a proof instead of just like computationally, it's sometimes a little more complicated or what you focus on is a little different. And also like a lot of the things like definitions, for example, are a lot more rigorous, and it's important to really understand like definitions for when you're
Like all the
doing
little
proofs.
details, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so like so for 135, I would say like it's very unlike high school, but it wasn't difficult because it's like purposely like not difficult content. And for 137, it's closer to high school, but like it's harder content just because it's being like very like rigorous and detailed, and you're trying to figure out how to like parse through that and figure out how to write a proof while you're doing that course, if that makes sense.
I think so, yeah. The biggest kind of transition is just the whole concept of proofs. Like it's no longer just a trig identity of this equation equals this equation equals this equation. It's more like theoretical now of like you kind of like you have a theorem, which is like a sentence, and it's a concept, and how does this concept relate to this concept? And then in order to kind of know that this applies to this and the implications of it all, you have to kind of practice understanding the concept to begin with. So that's probably my biggest transition, was just figuring out how proofs even work.
Yeah. But yeah, 135 is like I think it does a good job at like walking you through it. And also like one of the things to remember is like you're struggling, but like it's new for everyone else also, get some friends, tackle those assignment questions together, write them individually, but you can you can try and come up with ideas together.
Yeah, word of advice, do your assignments with people. Don't don't try, I mean, you can try and do them alone. You can take your first crack at it like on your own to see like what you understand and like what ideas you yourself can come up with. But like unless it's explicitly stated like do not work with other people on this, I'd highly recommend like do assignments with people. I haven't done an assignment on my own since literally like my first Math 135 assignment. Like compare with your friends, bounce ideas off each other. I think it's usually encouraged just as long as you submit your own work at the end. So, word of advice there.
Yeah, I really, really agree with that.
Yeah.
There's a question here. I've seen there's a fairly large window for the finals this semester, December 9th to 23rd. Around when did double degree finals usually end during your study terms? Um, it super ranges based off the class. I've had semesters where they're all in the first week. I've had semesters where they're all in the last week. Don't make plans.
Yeah, don't make plans. I think it's exams are always like at least a 2 week period. Like, and it's also not uncommon for Laurier to do at least midterms on like a Saturday or a Sunday. I
Yeah,
don't know
it's
why
really
Laurier does
unfortunate.
that. It kind of sucks. I've missed like
So
several
much.
cottage weekends in the summers because of it. Um, yeah, exams are just make time for it.
Yeah, it's not like they kind of group them by program. It's like really dependent on the class. So it's really inconsistent depending on what classes you're taking. There's also some profs who will like always request certain days, so it could also be prof dependent. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, good point. We're definitely not special. Okay, you said you picked two minors. When do we get to start choosing our courses? I actually prefer having them all laid out for me. I do too. We don't have to start choosing courses until I think our first option to pick a course is in like 2A when we get to
Hmm.
pick between two courses, either like Math 239 or Math 237, right? I think that's
Yeah,
it. Which
that's
is
correct.
so Math 237 is Calculus 3 and then Math 239 is Introduction to Combinatorics and Optimization.
Or
And
you can take them both, like I did.
yeah, or you can take just Math 239 because your grade wasn't high enough to take Math 237. Um, so lots of options out there for you. Um, and then afterwards, I think you get a lot more flexibility starting in third year. Um, Everything else is pretty much like your first 4 semesters, so 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B are all pretty much laid out for you.
Yeah, I mean, once you get to 2A, you're the person who's like saying, okay, like I want to take these courses and actually doing your course selection. So you could go like off the rails and not do like 239 or 237 and take something else. It just that's when most people take it. And also like you get choice on the math side a lot earlier than on the Laurier side. For Laurier, you get to start choosing, I think, in 4A, right?
I
Um,
honestly don't remember. Probably. That's probably right because I don't think I went on Loris to do anything until like very late. And I was like, wait a minute. This feels wrong. Why don't I know how to do this?
Yeah. Because what'll happen is for BBA, they literally will just give you your schedule. You'll be in a section, which means like whatever 2 or 3 courses you're taking, it'll be the same people in all of the courses. You can't change that at all. If you ask, they will yell at you. I know because I asked and they were like, no. And they will just like give that to you, and you can't change that until I think the end of third year. Um, and then, oh, the one thing to note though, which I didn't know, is that Laurier course selection, so for Waterloo, they do it for each term. Laurier does it in 12-month goes in like July or something like that. And I didn't realize that when I was picking my courses for fourth year until a lot of the courses I wanted to take were full because everyone had done their course selection months ago. So for third year and fourth year, remember around July, you have to pick your Laurier courses for the
The
entire
whole
year.
year, yeah. And like word like you could even like for example, if it's going to be that you're studying in the fall, working in the winter, and then studying in the summer, you can still pick courses like for the winter and then just drop them closer to like as a backup in case you don't get a co-op, for example. Like you just do the whole course selection. You can drop the courses later. It just basically secures you a spot in July.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, Waterloo course selection goes like term by term. Laurier is the whole year, but if you want to do like planning and stuff ahead of time, you don't have to, but you can just make yourself like an Excel sheet or something like that.
We like Excel sheets. I live by mine. Makes me happy. All right, let's move on. Um,
Yeah.
how did you find the workload first year? Still sufficient time for a first year experience and a good social life? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess that's not a yes or no question. Maybe it is.
I think
Uh,
yeah, if you once you get a hang of how to like plan your time and how long things take you and when you need to start working on them, like you can start arranging your life to have social time for sure.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember being kind of stressed in first year and thinking that I wouldn't have time for anything. But that's really not like once if you learn how to manage your time. I think that's one of the biggest thing university generally teaches you is how to manage your time and prioritize things. So once you kind of get the hang of it, you can do a lot of things that you want to do. Like I've been playing Quidditch since 1A actively. Like it's been a very big part of my life at Waterloo. Same with orientation. So there's like there's lots of time to have a first year experience for sure.
um, yeah, I mostly just like hung out with friends and stuff during first year, but like in second year I started like a full-time D&D campaign, which takes up like at minimum like 6 to 8 hours of my week. And I have had lots of time with that and school. So once you get the hang of the scheduling, you can do whatever you want. That's fun for you.
The beauty of double degree. Like I think the fact that you're kind of already applying to this program, you kind of already probably have a general ability to balance a heavy workload. Um, so I think everybody here will manage.
The next question I see is, do you know the dropout rate of this program? It is pretty high, but I think that's more because people realize they don't like it than people are failing out based off like people I've spoken to. Um,
Yeah, same.
yeah, I don't know the exact percent, but a lot of people realize like, oh, like I don't like the Laurier side or I don't like the Waterloo side. Like that's what happened with all of my friends who dropped out. They were just like, I like one of this and not the other one.
Yeah.
And then also a common drop place is when people are in fourth year. Sometimes they'll get job offers and they're like, oh, if I drop one of them, I can graduate a semester and start working full time at this job I super like. And so that's another point where a lot of people will drop. Um, so yeah, it is fairly high, but I think it's more like it's not because of people failing.
Yeah. So another question I see is when does finding co-op start? How many months before should you start applying? So I think that we're all Waterloo based here because you're at the Waterloo orientation. Um, could maybe not, maybe you're also Laurier based, but I think for both, if you're applying to jobs through the school that you're like, that's your home school. So if Waterloo is your home school, you apply through Waterloo. If Laurier is your home school, you apply through Laurier. Um, it will open in like so if my work term is in the winter, then the job postings will go up in September on the Waterloo or Laurier like job board. And so you start applying in September. Um, and then the first round, it kind of goes in rounds. There's the first round, you get like I think like 50 jobs you can apply to. You apply to those, then there's an interview period, and then like an offer like period,
Rankings,
um,
yeah.
rankings, yeah, and then there's the second round, and then maybe even a third round. So that all happens. I would say the busiest time is probably that first month of the term, before the co-op term. So like for winter September, if your co-op term for you guys, it'll be in the summer. So you would start applying to jobs in January. So right now, you do not have to worry about that.
Yeah. If anyone is Laurier based, it works a little differently. This is me like pulling off memories of talking to my friends who are Laurier based, so you'll probably want to double check what I'm saying. But your first co-op term is in like not this winter, but the winter after instead of in the summer. And I think you also start applying like in September. But if you want a job for that first summer, you'll have to arrange it yourself because Laurier co-op starts in second year.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so like if you're arranging yourself, you can always go on like a company's website like BMO and just probably also 4 months before is my guess of when they would
Yeah.
release those postings, and you just apply directly on the company's website.
Yeah, but also like especially for your first co-op, it's super recommended to apply like outside of the school system as well as in the school system because finding your first co-op is probably the hardest one.
Yeah.
Um, there's a question here about the calculators and
I
if you're
think
allowed to use
Ellie
them.
answered it below.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you get
Um,
calculators, or it specifies that you can't use a calculator.
but yeah,
A
part
lot
of
of
the
math
reason,
classes, actually, you can't bring a calculator. It's kind of funny or ironic.
I mean, I kind of didn't mind it because then I knew if I was getting something where I needed to do calculation that was too complicated to do in my head, I was doing the question wrong.
True.
Um, What kinds of clubs or groups did you get involved in? Do you want to start, Alyssa?
I would love to start. So here we go. Shameless plug. Quidditch is amazing. I joined Quidditch in first year. I've been an active member ever since. It is so much fun. We go and play against other universities that also have Quidditch teams. There's a regionals, there's a nationals. It's like it's a legitimate sport that you can play. Um, that like is pretty. It's a lot of fun. It's co-ed. It's full contact, so we can like tackle each other. And we also fly on brooms, so we literally hold a broom between our legs like the whole time. And we had practices like 2 times a week, basically. And then the tournaments would always be on weekends, so it never interfered with class. And it was for the whole year, so that's kind of been a big part of what I do at university. A lot of my personality now revolves around that. I don't know if it's a good thing or not. Um, but and of course orientation as well is a lot of fun for me. You go ahead, Zoe.
Yeah, I joined like so many clubs in first year. I was like, I'm gonna go and do all the clubs, and then they had meetings, and I sometimes couldn't make it to meetings, and then I was like, oh no, I haven't been to like 5 meetings, so I can't go anymore. I was just like embarrassed, which was like silly. Um, like I probably should have gone anyways, but I ended up getting involved in other stuff. So I mentioned Waterloo and Laurier, they have like the thing called the shoe tag program. And so basically you pay a flat fee at the beginning and you get access to like unlimited classes. So I got really into yoga and Zumba because who needs real exercise when you can do the fun stuff? And
It's
I
still
found that
exercise.
was
You're still sweating.
so
It
great.
counts.
Yeah, I found that was so great for my stress though. I like it, I felt it really helped me. And then, like I mentioned, I started a D&D group around like second year. And we've been playing like basically consistently, except for breaking for between terms and exams since then.
And there's also so these are kind of like funner, more fun. I speak English. They're more fun clubs that you could join, but there's also like academic clubs that you can join. So there's like a U Waterloo Actuarial Science Club. There's like a Women in Computer Science Club, Peer Mathematics Club. There's
Oh,
and like on the Laurier side as well.
yeah, you reminded me. I completely forgot, but I was part of the executive board for the Double Degree Club for a term, and I
There's
forgot about
Double
that.
Degree
Yeah.
Club too. We should talk about
Um,
that.
yeah, if anyone wants to run for Double Degree Club, the easiest term to get a position is probably 1B because most of the students, except for the first years and the fifth years, are on co-op that term. So it's a lot easier to get like a more senior position. Like one of my friends became the president, and she was like a first year student. So um, that is like my recommendation. Um, yeah, and when you say you're like in double degree and you're like part of the double degree club, it's like very bougie on a resume.
Very bougie. I mean, and
Um,
you get to be in charge of the hoodies when you're on Double Degree Club, which is
yeah,
very
if you do
important.
it in the fall, I
You
think.
do it in the fall. Okay.
How do you manage social groups between two universities? Most of my friends were in double degree or from Waterloo, like from residence. So I unfortunately just didn't have a ton of Laurier friends. Um,
Yeah. I don't know. I have like some, if most of my friends I think are like Waterloo students or double degree students, just because like we're Waterloo residents is where we kind of started and
yeah.
stuff like that. It's not very, I wouldn't think it's that difficult though, like
No,
to
yeah, you
manage the
just like
groups. Yeah. Like you're
it's
very
like
close to
managing
each other.
any yeah, like managing any two groups. Like I didn't hang out with my residence friends and my double degree friends together. So I guess it was yeah. I mean like you can either like have them meet and have a bigger friend group or just like schedule things separately.
Yeah,
Were
it
you able
works.
to find jobs related to our field?
Yes.
Um,
I guess I can start. I'm going into my fifth co-op, and I guess you are too, Zoe. But all my co-ops have been in like a variety of industries or like titles because that was kind of my goal for co-op. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I just wanted to try a bit of everything. So I've had success doing that in all my co-op terms. And I think double degree is a great program to kind of you already have such a broad like background that there are so many jobs out there that are applicable like to your field. Um, yeah, you can go ahead.
mhm. Yeah, similarly, I came into co-op with the goal of trying something different each time. I didn't have as much luck changing industries, even though I was able to change like what kind of work I was doing. Um, but I've done data analytics, I've done product development, I've done risk analytics. I worked at a startup where I like ran half a company. You you can get a good variety of what kind of stuff you're doing. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to have something that's not in like double degree fields because everything really is going to include like business math or both.
Yeah.
So
When is the first co-op term for Laurier based? I think Zoe touched on that. That will be in winter, for you guys, winter 2022.
yeah, so it'll
Oh, wait.
be right in between 2A and
No,
2B.
sorry, winter 2023. Winter 2022 is coming up. Winter
Yes.
2023 will be your first co-op.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So you'll start applying into A to find the job for that. And yeah, I think Laurier like might make you take like a course during that fall just to like teach like resume stuff and stuff like that, but you might take the course earlier and I might be misremembering.
I don't know.
How hard is it to get co-ops? Have you ever not gotten one? Um, it can be very hard. I got my first co-op because of a networking connection and not because of applying through Waterloo or other job things. I think it's definitely hardest to get your first co-op term, and there's a decent amount of people who don't. But after that, it gets a lot easier. Like second year, I had a super easy time finding a co-op term. I don't know, the stars aligned for me that co-op, but the first one is the hardest, and then after that, I'd say it's like not too bad.
Yeah, I remember I've also like I've gotten been able to get a co-op for all of them. But I remember kind of being in 1B And so we're in math BBA. I did the CS 135, 136. So I was taking the same courses as the CS BBAs. And I remember being like applying for co-ops, and all the CS BBAs were getting like all these interviews, and I got like maybe two. And I was like, how is this making any sense? I'm taking the exact same courses you're taking. So sometimes it can be difficult. It's hard to not get discouraged by it. But I think the biggest thing you can do for help in finding that kind of first co-op is working on your resume. You're in 1A. Jobs that take 1A or like students in their first year, there are a lot that do. And the reason they do is because they want to be that kind of first employer that teaches you good habits. They don't want students that learned like bad habits somewhere else to come in and do their own thing. A lot of jobs like that. So you need to really kind of advertise not only kind of like the clubs or extracurriculars that you've done on your resume, but you can even include like the coursework that you've done. So like for example, there was um uh there was like a project I did in CS where like I coded a solution to a maze or something. And I had that on my resume. I think even like after my first co-op, I still had that on my resume, like that this was a project I did in school, and how that works. And so just putting on as much like experience and projects that you've done is probably your biggest help for finding that first co-op. And networking helps as well, for sure.
Mhm.
Even past your first co-op, networking is still like very helpful.
What do you think about working part-time during first year? Would you say it's doable with coursework, extracurriculars? Um, while it is doable, I don't know if I would recommend it just because, as a being, you probably need time to rest and have fun. And if you're constantly doing schoolwork or employed work, I feel like you'll probably burn out.
Yeah. Especially because you're going to be doing 2 semesters back to back. So like you may be okay and manage it during like the fall in 1A, but you have to go and do a whole other 4 months of studying, and that can be very hard
Yeah.
sometimes. And also if the reason that you're thinking of doing like a part-time job is to put it on your resume, like to gain like experience for that first co-op, I would say that that's not necessary. Um, like things like we said, like the projects that you do in university in your classes, the clubs that you join, like the leadership skills you have, whatever, things like that is more valuable than like I worked part-time at like Tim Hortons. I think from my yeah, like it's if that's your motivation for working part-time, like I would say it's not necessary.
I would also say for working part-time specifically during first year, because most double degrees take 6 courses in 1B, I really would not recommend taking a job during that semester. Because like even in your head you're like, oh, it's just an extra course, and it's usually a communications course, which can be a bit easier. It still takes up time from your week. Because you have to, even if you, let's say you had no homework, that's still at least 3 hours of lecture. And I think like sometimes people don't realize just like, not having that time in your week means you do have less time for other things, which means having even more less time because you're taking an extra job can be very difficult. Do you guys have a walk card and a one card? Yes, and you will also need both. I got my one card, I think, a bit late just because I didn't want to wait in line and I knew the line would calm down. So you don't need one like immediately, but you should have both at minimum like a week before your first midterm because you need to show them as ID for your midterms.
You need to as well for whichever your home school is. You should definitely have that one like ASAP
Oh,
because
yes.
the bus pass will be on your student card. It's on the student card to the school you pay tuition to. So like Zoe and I's, like ours is on our Waterloo card because we pay tuition to Waterloo. For Laurier based, like you should get your one card like ASAP because then you won't be able to take the bus. without it.
Yeah, you also might need that like if you're in residence. I'm pretty sure your walk card or one card is doing your like your food. And also like if you want to buy things from the store, like textbooks and stuff like that. Like it just yeah, it's good to have it earlier for your homeschool.
Yeah. What kinds of jobs do double degrees usually get in co-op as well as after graduation? Um, so again, like there's so many possible jobs that you can get for co-op.
Hmm.
My job, like I was a developer, I was a data scientist, business analyst, um, like a quantitative analyst, like there's a very large variety of jobs you can get. And then any of those that Zoe and I have mentioned, like you can do that after as well. Even with Math BBA, like you can still get like a CS job. Um,
Yeah, one of my friends in math BBA just realized she really loves studying math, but she wants to work in like AI and machine learning. And so she's been doing like all AI type co-op jobs, and she's probably going to graduate and be like a developer for AI, even though she did math BBA. And on the other side, I have a friend in CS BBA who, for a time, really liked finance, and so he was getting like really like financy bank jobs for at least a term or two before he realized he didn't like it as much as he thought, which is nice about co-op because you can learn those things before you get a full-time job. But yeah, I'd say in terms of like what's available on Waterloo Works, it's mostly um, like developer jobs or like finance or analytics type things. If you're looking for like, there's a lot of variety and stuff inside of that. But sometimes if you're looking for something like actually, there's also a lot of for marketing. But if you're looking for something like product development, it might be like there's still quite a bit, but it's just like a little bit smaller than those kinds of things.
yeah, but
Um,
there's still a lot of jobs.
yeah,
Uh,
and most of the jobs are from large employers, which is kind of nice because you're being hired by someone who's like reputable and has a big name. So like, there's a lot of bank jobs, there's a lot of life insurance company jobs. Um, yeah.
okay. How hard is it to get into LIFA? Is that like the Facebook, Amazon of the world, Google? Wasn't there a different acronym for that? I don't know. I would say it's difficult. I haven't tried. I have friends that have gotten in, and the process is pretty extensive. Like, there's a lot of rounds of interviews to do. You have to apply, like, I think fairly early on to like have a chance to get in. But I can't speak a lot to it.
What are oh, I just lost the question. The research experiences like, how much commitment do they require? Um, I personally haven't done research, but I have a friend who is, and it is basically like another full course, if you're doing it like during school. Um, in terms of like opportunities and stuff, I'm not super sure about that. The things that I do know is that you want to try and find a prof who will like be your, I don't remember the correct word, but like your
Your
mentor person,
sponsor? Your
something like that, early
advisor?
on, and you want to yeah, you'll want to go to like office hours to try and like build those connections with profs before you ask them. In terms of like what's available, I think it depends on like what kind of research the profs are doing. So if you find a prof who's doing the kind of research that you're interested in, go make friends with them and then ask them to mentor you, if they have the time and are free.
So
Is it
is it
easy to
easy to
travel?
travel between the universities? Yes. They are on the
Absolutely.
same street.
Like 12
Um,
minute walk.
yeah, it is very easy. And it's common, like you'll have classes on both campuses on the same day, and it's very much not an issue.
Not at all. And if you don't want to make that 12-minute walk, there's like at least two buses that'll take you from one to the other.
Yeah. Do you recommend walking or taking the bus to go between the Waterloo and Laurier campuses? Again, up to you. In the winter, probably take the bus.
Yep.
Yeah. In the summer, a nice walk, unless, I don't know, it's too hot and get sweaty. I don't, very much up to you. Okay, so LIFA is Lori Investment and Financial Analysis. I don't even know what that club is. Um,
I think I've like vaguely heard of it. I don't know anyone who's done it, unfortunately. If you want to know more about them, though, you could probably like they probably have a website. I would go look on that. I would see if I could connect with a student who's already in there, maybe talk to them about it. Um, there's, um, yeah, sorry.
yeah. Is it necessary to get a car over there? What's the weather in Waterloo? I don't think it's super necessary to have a car in Waterloo. The
Yeah,
only
if
time you might ever want one is to go to the grocery store, but even then, like the bus will take you there. There's a lot of bus routes like in Waterloo, and then there's a go bus as well that will take you to Toronto and to like Square One if that's where you want to go. And then the possibilities from there are endless. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I'd say like you definitely don't need a car if you're in residence. Once you're off campus, like yeah, like Alyssa said, the only thing is super groceries. But if you don't mind walking or taking public transit, like I've made do without a car most of my terms.
yeah, I've never had a car on campus. Um, how do I
How do
connect?
I
You read it.
oh how do I connect with upper year students? Um, there's a few ways you could do that. I guess probably some of the easier ways would be I know that double degree usually runs like a peer mentorship thing where they like match you with an upper year student to chat about stuff. You can also talk to if your peer mentor was interested, your peer mentor from Math Ready. Um, you could talk to orientation leaders. Um, you could talk to your TAs for classes. And also, like, if you do things like double degree club and double degree club events, that's a good way to meet specifically double degree club upper years, since, like, a lot of the time, those events aren't just for first years. Like, you'll get a variety of double degrees who show up.
Yeah, same with like
Um,
all clubs. Like if you want to meet people in
yes.
the Axi industry, join the Axi club, and there's definitely people in upper years in that club that you can talk to. Um, so
And then
just
if you
join
don't want to
join
meet
clubs.
Yeah, and then if you don't want to meet like math people specifically, you can join like an interest club, and that's a great way to just meet like
People
a
with
whole
common
range of
interests.
diverse
Yeah,
people. Yeah.
that's fun too. Where were your co-ops situated generally? Is it hard to get co-ops in Toronto? All of my co-ops have been in Toronto.
All of my co-ops have been in Toronto. Most of the co-ops available are in Toronto or Waterloo. I would say probably if you want to co-op in Toronto, you can just only apply to Toronto places, and you will still probably like that's the majority of the jobs
Yeah,
probably.
there's a lot of jobs. There's also
Um,
like international jobs for all the Silicon Valley people, like there's lots of
Or if you
jobs
want
there
to go,
too.
yeah, once I found this position, it was like doing research at this like tiny university in Germany. So like if you really want like a wild and
Oh yeah,
experience.
my friend did a co-op in Germany. I completely forgot that she did that. Yeah. You can go wherever your heart desires.
But yeah, Toronto is super doable. I've had friends who've done all their co-op terms in Toronto also. Like if that's what you want, you can do that. No issues.
Yeah. Um, thought I saw some questions in
Were
chat.
there any that we missed?
I think we're got through them all. That's pretty good because we have about 10 minutes left of the panel. If you haven't had an opportunity to ask something else that's come up, um, what is the coolest thing you've learned or done so far in a math course? Um, I've done cool things in CS courses. Like the first one for me that comes to mind, it's in we basically modeled the spread of a pandemic. Like we took, so it was like a math CS course. We were working with differential equations. that pretty much model like the number of the percent of the population that's like susceptible, exposed, infected, or recovered from like a virus. It's called the SEIR model. You could look it up on the internet. And basically based on that model and then a few like other factors, we like literally modeled like what the spread would look like. And then we did like a second wave, like how does that work? Like what's the number of people that are going to get infected from that? So that was really cool. We like just did that. It was so applicable.
Oh, I'm having so much trouble thinking of like specifically one cool thing because like I feel like especially in a lot of the upper year courses like we'll just be like learning about a concept or something like that and I feel like everything I'm learning I'm like this is so cool and interesting and exciting.
Yeah,
Um
there's definitely a lot of like graph theory things that I've learned, and I'm like,
yeah,
what? What do you mean?
yeah, I was gonna say like part of the reason I like taking combinatorics and optimization classes is because like so much of graph theory and enumeration, which is like fancy counting, um, is like very like fascinating and interesting, and especially like when you learn graph theory, like it starts with like this is a graph, and then you're like, okay, here's like an element of a graph and like what it's called when it looks like this, and then you start learning like more properties about it, and you're and like it just it's really
And so
interesting
much
and
stuff
good.
happens. It's really cool.
Yeah. And then like all of it connects to itself and you're like, "Oh, if a graph has this thing, it means it has this thing and that means you can make like this kind of graph." And it's like, yeah, these aren't like graphs like you did in high school, you know, like functions.
It's
It's
like
like when you have like,
draw dots and then connect them. And that's a graph.
yeah, that's basically it. It's like a set of dots and lines. So yeah, if you take Math 239, the first half of the course you do enumeration, and the second half you do graph theory. And so the joke is that in the first half of the class you learn how to count, and in the second half of the course you learn how to draw pictures.
So if you like doing those things, you're good to go. And if you can't do calculus, you're good to go. Like me. Okay, is methyl 99 enough to get us ready for math 135, 137? So I don't think Zoe and I like that wasn't offered to us when we were going into first year. So I think it's great that they started doing that. I think it's because it's literally Waterloo specific, my guess is that it will definitely help be more ready for Math 135, 137. Not even
Mhm.
specifically for like whatever course it teaches, but probably just for you to see like what is Waterloo like what are the assignments like what is the kind of method of instruction like. So I think it's probably helpful. Um,
Yeah, I would say it should be.
I hope it is. They are doing it again.
Yeah, they did it last year, and since they're doing it again, I would say that's a positive sign.
Yeah. Um, how are online courses structured versus in person in the math faculty? I'm going to extend that to like math and business because math, I think a lot of courses, when it's been online, it's often either like recorded or you'll kind of have to do the readings or something like that. Versus Laurier, which loves live lectures and synchronous activities and participation. Laurier really, really likes participation. You are gonna have to raise your hand. I am so sorry, everybody. Like, welcome to university. You're gonna have to raise your hand and speak a lot more often than you might have done before. Um, but that's been, I think,
Yeah,
brought
I would
on.
say for math classes I've taken, there's like two main formats for online. One of them is recorded lectures, like Alyssa said. Usually that's either slides or they'll be like writing on like a tablet or something like that. And they'll be like talking as they're writing, which feels a bit more like a whiteboard. And then the second is the reading thing, where basically it's like the lecture, but it's like written out. So instead of like listening to someone say it, you just like read it, but it's not like reading a textbook. Like it feels like you're reading a lecture in terms of how it's written. And then occasionally they'll embed videos in there for examples and things like that. And then on the Laurier side, it's only synchronous lectures, which means like they will be at a specific time, just like in person lectures. And Laurier has tried as much as possible to keep online lectures and in-person lectures as similar as possible. Yeah.
I think David sent in a question. I completely forgot about my Laurier email. Is there anything urgent that I need to do? I haven't checked it in months. I don't know.
Log in and
I'm
check
not.
it.
Yeah, you should go check it. We are not in first year. You are now a university student. Go check your email.
Yeah, what I would do if you're worried about checking one of them or the other is just like get like email forwarding on if it's really hard to check both emails, or just have them come into the same like mail app, which is what I do. But you will be you'll be communicating with your Laurier profs, and they will be communicating with you through your Laurier email. So it's possible your prof may have emailed you to say like hello, or you will need this textbook. I would recommend checking both your Waterloo and your Laurier email at least once every day or two at minimum.
I have like my Outlook open on my computer all the time.
Yeah,
It's
me
just
too.
it's just back there running, eating my battery. Okay. So we can stick around a little more. We have 3 minutes. But otherwise, I think that's the Q&A. Thank you for joining. Um, it's been a pleasure to speak with you, answering your
Yeah.
questions. I don't know how to close out something. I
Yeah,
really
thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming out and spending this hour with us. Um,
we hope it was
hope,
helpful.
yeah, hopefully it was informative and good. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to peer mentors, orientation leaders, us. Um,
Yeah, we're on
and
Teams for sure, so you can
yeah,
shoot us messages on Teams. I'm sure we'd be happy to answer. Um, yeah,
yeah, have an awesome rest of your day.
yeah, enjoy or night. I don't know what time it is.
Oh, yeah.
Could be